had not thought about this event for 7 years, and I was driving to work one day. I can mark an excellent spot on the road where this happened. This was so intense. A voice, very authoritative, said he was an angel. I knew exactly what the voice was talking about, and I had not thought about this for 7 years. He was an angel.
This is Touched by Heaven, everyday encounters with God. Because God is speaking to you and me and the church and the world. And here we get to listen in on the conversations through these great encounters with angels, divine intervention, prophetic dreams, visions, near-death experiences. Welcome, I'm your host, Trapper Jack. So I spun the wheel of Touched by Heaven this week, and the Holy Spirit took it to an episode about 3 years ago. And as I was listening, I'm thinking, I don't remember. Where did this go? Oh, wait, what happens then? And I figure if the host can't remember where this episode goes with all the stories, I think this will be a great episode. It has to do with Dan and an angel and a $12 debt that had to be repaid to said angel. It's about synchronicities. In fact, there's a watch that just keeps on ticking and ticking and ticking. And confirming that this is the episode for this week, a song's been playing in my head that has the lyrics, "Only love can break a heart, and only love can mend it again." And you'll hear that here with Dan from Pittsburgh, PA.
I work at Children's Hospital Pittsburgh. I work in it's kind of like the semi-dispatch area. Now, I have a lot of stuff here. You stop me whenever I go over too far because I'm a talker.
And I'm an editor, so don't worry about it. It's okay.
Sounds good.
All right.
I grew up here. I'm living in the same house I grew up in, where we literally live right beside the river. If I go out my back door, there's the Ohio River right down over the hill. And there's a Methodist church two streets over, and that's where my mom took us to, me and my brother, to the Methodist church.
Okay.
And I kind of grew up in the Methodist church. Lived a Tom Sawyer kind of a life on the river and playing. Nothing bad ever happened to us. It was just a wonderful childhood. And then when some things happen, I guess that's what we'll talk about.
And how did you find the podcast?
I'm just looking for things that said positive, uplifting, inspiring. I don't listen to those Ouija board type of podcasts. They just bother me. So, and yours came up. You came up as like one of the number one cool, inspiring ones to listen to.
Yeah, that's what's under the category. Inspiring and cool. That's us.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Well, I'm glad you stumbled upon. That's awesome. And then as far as, did you ever fall away? Always been a part of?
I was a believer, but I never really took it to heart. I never knew who Jesus was. I knew who he was, but I never, how can I put it?
He wasn't in the room.
No, good. Thank you. He was, but I didn't know it.
Yeah. So at what point does that change?
There was an event that happened. I was married. My wife and we had a 4-year-old son, Paul. This was the very beginning of my transformation, if you want to call it that. And I think we do want to call it that. We were in the local mall, and it was around Christmas time. And she had gone into like a ladies' clothing store. And Paul and I sat outside. He was 4 years old. We got him some ice cream, and we sat at one of the fountains out there. And so just sitting there eating ice cream real quietly. And this gentleman walked up to us, and he just gently started sharing the Lord and started semi-preaching to us and asking me some questions. And to tell you the truth, it was a little uncomfortable for me. And I was slightly glad that when he was finished and walked away. And when my wife came out of the store, I didn't even mention it to her and just kind of forgot the whole issue. Now, it was about 7 years later. I had not thought about this event for 7 years. And I was driving to work one day, and so I was driving down the road. I was leaning over. I can mark an excellent spot on the road where this happened. This was so intense. I was reaching over to turn on my radio or change the radio station, and a voice, very authoritative but very quiet, said he was an angel. And immediately, the synapses in my brain, the chemicals connected, the electricity flowed. I knew exactly what the voice was talking about. And I had not thought about this for 7 years. So it was from that point on, I started saying something's going on here.
You heard the voice. He was an angel. And immediately you knew the moment.
I knew exactly. Travis.
Isn't that interesting? It's not like you were thinking all the time about that guy that walked up to you.
No, it had left my mind for all those years. I never thought about it again.
Okay. So what does that get you? How does that change you? Or does it? Or what happens?
Well, I started questioning things. Not questioning things, but kind of reaffirming things, like some things are happening here, and this can't be coincidence. when my Paul and Tracy and Allie were little, like I said, we live literally on the riverbank here, and I had a rowboat, and I said, "Oh, let's go out in the rowboat," and I took them down the river a couple miles. So we got back, and I sent them up the hill. I went to the front of the boat, and I tied it off. I went to the right side of the boat. Trevor, it was already tied. I said, "What? How did that happen? I didn't do that." I said, "I mean, I was spooked. This is the middle of the day, the bright blue sun. There's motorboats out there pulling water skiers. I hear kids laughing and dogs barking up on you. What did this?" I thought, "Oh, I had to have done that. There's my footprints should be." No, there's no footprints there. There was no one that to this day. I'm thinking I'm getting an idea why that happened now, but
What's your thinking? What's your thinking?
I think there's angels in that river.
Yeah, well, there are angels with you.
Well, I'm a diver. I'm a fire department diver.
Okay.
And so many times I've asked in that darkness and that murkiness, and please help me help this family. They need some closure on this. So let me get this done quickly and safely, and let people move on with their life. So, and I've gotten that answer quite a few times.
You've had to die for bodies.
Yeah, I'm still doing that. We're developing more technology, more things to do. But
do you think it's a reaction to that? Do you think that's an angel, God's reaction to what you do? That just kind of like, hi. That is an interesting thing. Like, why tie off the boat? Well, it's involved with the river. Here's what you do in the. I don't know. I think you draw an interesting connecting dots to that you do work for God, if you will, in here for families out of love. This is not a fun thing to do. Let's go find a body. That's just part of what you do.
Yes, and this is a holy God working in our life. But here's one that my wife, I've teased her too many times. I don't take her serious enough. She says she's always wanted a pond in the yard. Her sister has a fish pond, and she wants a fish pond too. I said, well, there's 981 miles of Ohio River right behind us. How much more pond can you need? And if that was funny the first time for her, it was the last time. So a couple of weeks later, a pond liner washed up on the beach.
A pond liner.
Yep, to make the pond with. It's like the form that you just dig a hole in the ground and it goes down in there. So my wife got her pond.
I think they like you. I think those angels like you, buddy. I think they kind of register a nice guy here,
Yeah. I'm advertising for him now. I'm speaking out for him.
There you go. More stuff to come then. My gosh.
Yeah. I'm going to include this one story about a prophetic dream because I don't know why this happened. This was in 1980. This was prior. I was working as a security guard in the mill. I was actually one of the supervisors. And I came to work that morning. And during the night, I had this dream that I was on a space shuttle. And it exploded just over a minute into takeoff. And this was in January 1986. So I got to work and I told my partner, I said, "Hey, did the space shuttle take off okay today?" He said, there was one scheduled. He said, "Yeah, why?" And I told him why. I said, "I had this dream." So, okay, everything was okay. It was just like a bad nightmare. So however many weeks later it was, my dad called me at work one day when I was down there. And he said, "Hey, did you hear what happened?" I said, "No, Dad, what happened?" He said, "The space shuttle just exploded on takeoff." Now obviously, it was the Challenger. It was January 28th, 1986. And
so just literally, so they had two launchings. I forget that they had two launchings in January.
And here's the rub. It was the one who took off on earlier was the Columbia, the day that I was questioning, because it bothered me for quite a while. Was I supposed to do something with that?
No, it's funny you say that. I had a shuttle dream myself not too long before that one exploded, that it was suddenly missing or gone, and then yours, you actually had the full whammy. You're actually on board. No, I think you had a premonition there, some kind of.
And I don't know the purpose of it, and I just include it.
Generally speaking, having prophetic dreams isn't your thing, but it was that particular time, although it happened within days later when the next shuttle went off.
Yeah, within about, I think it was like 2 weeks. I think it took them like 2 to 3 weeks to get the launch pad ready.
Yeah.
And
who knows why, right?
Yep. Nobody knows. So here's Christmas Eve, 1993. Again, I was working at the hospital, and My wife called me, told me to pick up some film. Remember film on the way home because we didn't have any film for Christmas morning, the next morning. So this is Christmas Eve. I walked into the store and up to the electronics department, and I walked up. And as I approached, I really paid attention to these two people that he was attending to. They were both good, attractive-looking people. A blonde lady they both had dark coats on, long dark coats. But the gentleman, again, very good-looking guy, long dark coat, and very distinctive curly hair. So I go up to the clerk and I told him what I wanted. He goes, okay. And he brings out 2 packs of Polaroid film. He said $12. So I got my wallet out. Trapper, I didn't have anything in my wallet. I felt so embarrassed. This is even before like Mac cards and everything like that. I didn't have a credit card on me. So I like sheepishly just pushed my way back away from the countertop, and I'm apologizing. I'm just so embarrassed. And the gentleman said, no, a man needs pictures of his family at Christmas time. I said, oh, no, sir, that's okay. And it was in no uncertain terms made it clear that I wasn't leaving without that film. So I said, well, thank you, and he paid for it, and I walked out. And it turns out that film, those pictures I took on Christmas morning of my kids and family, were the last pictures I'd have of my son, Paul. So later, at the end of the week, it was New Year's Eve, and I was working the 3 to 11 shift. And my wife had called me and said, hey, we're going to stop over at some of our friends' house. We'll see New Year's Eve in there, the New Year in there. We'll take the 3 younger ones. There was Tracy, Allie, and Andrew. Paul was 12. We're taking Paul over to the friend's house because his buddies are there, and the other 3 are going to go to a babysitter. So okay. So I got there about 11:30. We had fun for like an hour and a half, and it was time to go. Paul had been downstairs with his 2 buddies, and I took him home, and my wife went and got the other 3 from the babysitter. So we went home. Paul was kind of quiet on the way home. And so we all went to bed about, 1:30, 2 o'clock. So the next morning, New Year's Day, we kind of all slept in. I mean, late. And suddenly my wife woke up kind of like alarmed, and she ran to the kids' rooms, and she screamed for me to come in the boys' room. She couldn't wake Paul up. And I don't understand what was wrong. We didn't know. So my wife's a nurse and I'm a firefighter EMT. So we like administered as much as we could, and we just couldn't. He was completely unresponsive. We didn't know what happened to him. So we called 911, and I called my friends at the hospital saying, hey, my son's coming in. The ambulance took him to our fire station where the helicopter flew him into Children's Hospital. That was a very, very, very dark time for us. The people I knew in the ER were all coming to cry on our shoulders. And the trauma surgeon came to us and said, he's sustained a brain injury. He has a subdural hematoma, and the bleeding in his brain is causing a lot of pressure. And we don't look for a good outcome on this. And we're just, please, go help him. Go do what you can. Please. It was, friends and family and a lot of people were coming. The word spreads in our small town, and a lot of people came to the hospital. But Trapper, I don't remember much. It just kind of blacked out on me. I don't remember much at all. And later they did pronounce them that he has no brain activity. Oh
my gosh! What happened at the Friends, or what did you find before we go on with the story? Did something happen there?
I guess they were just playing and roughhousing, and he banged his head on a couch, or just something in the roughhouse thing.
But there was something that happened. They were aware.
Yes. It wasn't just
He didn't realize how serious it was, obviously.
Right. And we didn't know that. He didn't ever told us. He didn't want to tell on his friends or something, and he got hurt. Yeah. So that silence is what did it. So what I don't remember much at all, but I do remember with that crystal clarity, my coworkers, the ICU doctors, to social workers, to the other people that work with me in that office, that just came in and they just wet my shoulder with their tears. And So anyway, here's another part of that too. So the next morning we went to pick up the little ones. Well, we didn't pick them up. They were just next door. My parents, they came over, and they're all curious. They didn't know what happened. They're young children. So we sat them down on the couch in front of us, and we explained to them that last night Paul went to heaven. And I'll always hear those three little child gasps. I hear a lot of things I don't want to hear again, but those three little gasps, they just couldn't fully understand what this was all about. And so we had to explain it to them. So we did that. Now it's like 4 days later is for the funeral. On that day, there were 17 inches of snow that morning. The funeral director, Mr. Copeland, wonderful man, came to me and said, Dan, I don't think we're going to be able to complete everything here. We just can't get to the cemetery. The roads are blocked. So we didn't even know if anybody was going to show up. Well, 100 people showed up. And when we went out to go to the cars, every salt truck and plow truck in Moon Township was there to plow the way to the cemetery. And we got there. And see, my friend, his name's Jimmy. He was the manager for the road department, and he's a brother firefighter too. So he made sure we got taken care of.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, just the goodness of people comes through. This is, like I said, this is starting to cause that transformation. Now, I've been told that people or families that experience such a tragedy often don't survive as a family. And I thought, no, not my family. We'll be okay. But it did happen. It started breaking down, and I saw the end of it. And one day my wife left with the kids, and more desolation. This was about 5 years later, 6 years later, maybe.
It adds so much stress, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was a bad year. Yeah. But then I met a lady in the Sunday school class who really was building me up and really helping me. And she's been my wife now for almost 20 years. I know God hates divorce, but this one, I don't know what to do. I feel bad about that, but He's blessed me with my new wife, Joan, and she really, and I'll tell you here in a minute why. One of the reasons. So here's another part of the story. When Paul was in the casket, my mom had given him this digital watches were a fairly new thing back then, and he loved this digital watch she gave him for Christmas. So I wanted to keep that as a memory of him and think about that. So I brought it up in our bedroom. I put it in the jewelry box. And every once in a while, I'd come in and I just pick that watch up. And I watch the seconds and a couple of minutes tick by. And I think, oh, what's Paul doing right now? What this very moment? What is time ticking? And I understand that time isn't the same in heaven as it would be here, or is it? Do we really know?
But you're wondering what he's doing wherever he is.
Right now. Yep. I kept doing that. And now it's been 8 years and I'm wondering, wow, that watch battery is still running. How long does a watch battery last? Well, Google told me that 1 to 3 years is how long a watch battery lasts. Now it's been 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And Trapper, now it would have been 10 years, then 12 years, then 15 years. And Trapper, it went to 20 years.
What?
This is impossible. This is just impossible. This thing, the watch band had rotted off. The rubber watch band was like a rubbery thing, and it went away. I just have the watch itself.
20 years.
I have witnesses to this.
I'm not doubting.
I wouldn't make this up.
No.
This is so.
So you're thinking about this. He died when he was 12, right?
Yes.
So when he would have been 32, this thing is still going.
Still keeping time. What's he doing right now? What is he doing? And so
So every time you picked up the watch, you're expecting it. It's got to stop now, right? And it's still going.
Well, so what happened was I told my wife, there's that $12 out there. I owe somebody. So
There's a what?
The $12 that the guy in the store gave me for the film.
You're still thinking about that because you now have pictures from that Christmas.
Yes, of course. Yes.
Because of him.
Yes.
And you still in the back of your mind are thinking about the $12.
I owe somebody $12. It was a gift, I know, but it's time to do some payback.
Is that kind of a payback, pay forward, whatever that is?
Pay forward, maybe. Yep, that's a better term. Thank you.
Okay.
So we wrote a check and we put it we sent it to K-Love, the radio station.
Okay.
So I watched the mailman come and pick it up out of the mailbox, and I thought, wow, this is a good day. So I wanted to go up and spend time with Paul again. And I opened up the jewelry box and I picked up the watch, and Trapper, it had stopped. I went from hero to zero in those few seconds. I couldn't understand what was, why of all, what happened, why right now, why at this moment when the check is literally just around the corner from us now, going down the road in the mail truck. So I became tearful and kind of broken down. And my wife, Joan, came to me and said, no, a debt was owed and a debt was paid. So,
wow.
that sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it does. As you have all these things bubbling still in your head. You're thinking about the $12, and because of that, you have the pictures of Paul and everybody at that age, and then you pay $12, and then the watch stops.
I listened to a podcast about the gentleman who called in, was in a car accident, and he lost his daughter in that accident. And all these things started happening after that, and I could identify with that man so closely. The things I believe every word he said. That
Life of Riley. Riley.
Yes, that was it. Yeah.
Oh Riley. My gosh! And then they're watching that Sheldon television show, and they're basically seeing their story reenacted on a television show, like within 2 days of the accident. It's like, what? I mean, names and places and things, and I'm getting shivers as if you haven't heard that one, it's for a search, Life of Riley, and it's remarkable.
Yep.
And that's happened more than once, where somebody dies and then people come to God. I mean, God uses a horrible tragedy and brings people in closer.
Yeah, he certainly does. He certainly does.
And he did that with you.
Yeah, very much so. It built my faith. And there's a second half of this, if I have the moment to.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have Tracy and Allie and Andrew left, and they actually, my wife had moved them to Florida with them. So my daughter Allie got married, and her and her husband moved to California, the San Diego area. And sadly, I guess their marriage failed. So she was working as a property manager out there. We take advantage of her being a property manager. Her company would let her go and rent, in quotations, these other properties like condominiums and just wonderful places. We've read Stephen King books. One was The Shining. I think we may have watched the movie. It was reportedly Stephen King he got the inspiration from the book by staying in the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado. So we drove there to Estes Park. Beautiful town, beautiful people there, and just friendliest people. Well, as we were there eating, we noticed there was a wedding going on inside, a rather large wedding, it seemed like. And we kind of snuck upstairs like little kids, and we went to where the room was that Stephen King supposedly stayed in. And we giggling and took pictures of ourselves at the room. Then we ran outside.
Red room. Red room.
Yeah.
Red room. Is that from The Shining? Red room?
Yeah, okay. It is. Well, what happened was my daughter, Allie, was sexually assaulted out in California. And my ex-wife and my daughter and my son, they kept this from me to protect me. I guess because I'm not a very strong person. I would have so they kept it from me. And they brought her back to Florida. And she was on medication to calm her down and stuff. Well, she got a little bit too aggressive with those medications. And she actually, I think what the police said, she was sniffing some cocaine. But someone had put something in it, and she passed away from this overdose, I guess. And I got that call at 2:00 in the morning in 2018, around in November. It's just, I'm getting at a loss here.
I'm so sorry.
So another brain shut down, and that blackness in my life was just creeping over us again. No. So my everyday prayer is, Lord, I pray that Paul and Allie are in your loving arms tonight. I pray that every day. And this isn't about me. This isn't about my grief. This is about the one who cared for us. And by his blood and in his name, I talk to you about him. He takes care of me. So what we did is I saved up money. This 2 years later, now this would have been I saved it up for a vacation. And I wanted my daughter, Tracy, to come and see some of the things her sister did out in Colorado. Now, I'm bringing this around to Estes Park. I wanted her to go see Estes Park. I wanted her to go up and see this, just do this silly thing again, go up there and take a picture so I can kind of recreate, I guess, a picture of her there, and so that she can experience that too. And when we got there, now this is just last year. This is during the COVID. When we got up there, we saw the yellow tape all around the doors and everything. You can't go in. I thought, oh man. And we were, complaining and saying, man, we really wish we could have got in there. And our conversation merged with the gentleman next to us. He just walked with us, and he said, yeah, man, I want to get in there too. And I have a tradition I started with my daughter. We have a drink on this day to celebrate her wedding there. And my wife started saying, well, when was the wedding? He said, well, it was in September of 2017. And she goes, well, what day was it? Here, it was his daughter's wedding that we were there with Allie. Now,
oh, wow.
What are the chances that I mean, I'm saying this really doesn't have like a life significance to it, except that why, like if we'd have caught a red light, if we'd have got a green light where we got a red light, this conversation wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, yeah.
But this was the same guy 2 years. And the thing was, it wasn't even the anniversary date. This was in June, and the wedding had been in September.
For no other reason than just to bring Allie into it, huh?
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you. Yes. Have you ever heard of Elizabeth Barrett Browning?
Yeah.
1800s poet. The one I picked up on was earth's crammed with heaven, and every common bush afire with God, but only he who sees takes off his shoes. And I guess the explicit meaning there goes back to when Moses stood before God. He said, this is holy ground. Take off your shoes, take off your sandals. So I'm thinking we're seeing things here that we should be taking our shoes off for, that this is God's work in our lives. And we should understand it. And I think that's why I say that about the other stuff that we maybe shouldn't be attracted to. This is the stuff we should be attracted to and understand this is from a holy God who cares and loves for us, and it's by his blood and in his name that we are free. I believe that
all of that, and you're right. Shoes off. That's I am guilty of being too cavalier at times. At these times, I get so excited I don't maybe show enough reverence. But in my own way, my exhilaration is also my reverence, because I'm just so dazzled by God. It's what brought me back. God was a bore until I saw that he was doing all this stuff. He was just boring, and now what that dazzle does is it makes you want to know him better, because you can't love someone you don't know. And that takes you into the Bible. That takes you, into Scripture, and then you get to know him even more. So
that's about all the serious stories I have there. But
tell you what, let's pause here for a second, because and I get to do this more often lately, which I love, because I get to thank you for helping us out on Patreon. Not only do you have a great story, not only do you listen and share the stories, but you also support what we do. Why are you doing
that? That's exactly why. I picked up on what these people are telling us, and they're so eager to tell these just impossible stories, these impossible coincidences, and the hope it gives me. Why are these things happening? I really believe that's God just making his way out of, into our bedrooms, into our kitchens, into our workplaces, into our places of enjoyment, the vacation. He's always there. And he wants us to know it. What you do is so wonderful. It makes, I believe, every person who said every word they say on your show, why are we so, as a people, why is it so enjoyable for us to think about the dark things, the occult, the Ouija boards, the everything that's so bad? I'm not saying they're not true. Those things may terribly be true, but why are we drawn to them? Instead, we never hear of people telling stories like this. So all those people, I love listening to the people call into you, Jack.
What we do find is people do love these stories, and if you give people these stories, they do gravitate towards them because it's cool and it's what was the other word you used? Inspirational. Okay, so
inspirational.
But we do dance on that middle ground, don't we? We are intrigued by evil. We are. It can happen, but I think if you offer this stuff, as we do, people do come. People love this stuff. They do. It is uplifting,
Yeah.
We appreciate the support. A couple of ways you can do it, either here at this episode or go right to patreon.com, search for Trapper Jack. How did you do it? Do you remember?
I did it off your website.
Okay.
And it took me right there, and it was just very easy to take care of it there.
It's awesome. Thank you for your support. So this has been great, Dan. This has been wonderful.
If it helps somebody else, this is what my wife encouraged. Well, my pastor, actually, I ran it past him too, and he encouraged me. Yes.
Did he? To do this? Is that right?
Oh, yeah. Yes, he did.
Nice. And so this would be the same pastor then that you mentioned to me was looking for special inspiration, and he was in a chapel, and he was all by himself. And what happened? This is in a sermon. What happened?
He said he walked in, it was empty, and he sat down and bowed his head, and immediately a hand landed on his shoulder. And here he looked up, and there was this gentleman there who said, I can help you. And he ministered to the pastor. He said, he gave him some good godly advice. I don't know what all it was, but he gave him some advice. Well, when he described this gentleman, the guy that came out of nowhere, he was a very tall, long dark coat, very good looking, and very distinguishable curly hair. I sat up in the pew. I just wanted to jump up and shout, I know him. I know that man. If you want to call him a man.
Yeah. Yeah, $12.
Yeah, I should have just given it to him. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the guy with money. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Well, it seemed like a moment that I should take my shoes off. I can't tell you how, not just exciting, but how heartwarming it is to finally talk to you. And I will definitely be listening and paying attention.
Thanks, Dan. Remarkable stories. As far as the takeaway goes, for me, it's Elizabeth Barrett Browning, that these are moments that we should be taking our shoes off. And Dan, that you see it truly says so much about your faith. Only love can break a heart, and only love can mend it again. God bless you. Thank you so much. Now, what is your story? Again, not a competition. Your story is your story, whether it's angels or near-death experience or vision or dream or whatever it happens to be. Get a hold of me at touchedbyheaven.net. Thanks also if you just click right through here, go to Patreon. Mary Rossi. Thanks, Mary, for joining the Patreon family. Appreciate that. Keep this all going. Just like Dan said.
And the hope it gives me. He's always there, and he wants us to know it.
Thank you. Come to this episode and click your way through to Patreon and go to patreon.com and search for Trapper Jack. And we'll see you here next week. I'm Trapper Jack, and this is Touched by Heaven, Everyday Encounters with God, a Stephen King production.
We went to where the room was that Stephen King supposedly stayed in.
Red room. Red room.
Yeah.